When Christopher Columbus discovered America in 1492, he first landed in the Antilles. For centuries, powerful European countries battled each other for control of this chain of islands, which stretches over 4,000 kilometers from north to south. Spanish conquerors quickly surrendered the Lesser Antilles to the French and English in favor of the richer islands of the north, the Greater Antilles. Our cruise will take us from the Lesser to the Greater Antilles. Destination, Cuba. The 100-meter Levant, French flag waving, approaches the coast of St. Barth. In spite of its modest size and high maneuverability, the approach is difficult, and there's tension on the bridge.
145.
It's easier if you've already been through here, because you know the ropes. It takes a little of the pressure off. If you don't know the area, you read up on it in advance. As sailors, we always have nautical instructions, maps, advice given to us by other captains. We research, we prepare for it religiously, you might say.
The Levant is now at anchor. Crew members in charge of organizing the passengers' disembarkation set out by rowboat for the port of Gustavia, capital of St. Barth. It's said that St. Barth was named after Christopher Columbus's brother, Barthelemy. Originally inhabited by Caribbean Indians, this 25-square-kilometer patch of greenery was a former pirate's haunt, then populated by French peasants in the 16th century. Louis XVI sold the island to Sweden, at which point the port city of Carénage was renamed Gustavia. Returned to the French in 1876 for 320,000 francs, St. Barth is a fashionable destination today, attracting wealthy tourists to its luxurious hotels. While the rest of the Antilles represent a cultural crossroads between Africa and Europe, St. Barth's population is 95% white, mostly originating from Western France, particularly Brittany. Though not as grand as carnivals in Trinidad or Martinique, St. Barth's Carnival is an attempt to bring the island out of its torpor. Some find the island dull and lifeless, others consider it calm and elegant. But gone are the days when expert sailing was necessary to negotiate the reefs protecting Gustavia, and when St. Barth's turned out some of the Caribbean's best navigators.
I've known lots of sailors from St. Barth's. Even those that have sailed on 5 masts who went without a sextant, they were great. When we navigated the Caribbean islands, St. Barth's, Guadeloupe, Martinique, even Santo Domingo, we carried many different things: salt, animals, and salt-cured fish. We spoke French, English, some of us spoke Spanish, so it was pretty easy for us.
In the last 20 years, St. Barth's economy has become entirely dependent on tourism. It's easy to understand the local old-timers' sense of nostalgia when we learn that as recently as 1970, horses were the only form of transportation here. The Levant leaves St. Barth for the Greater Antilles and the Dominican Republic. Escorted by dancing dolphins, the Levant enters Samana Bay in the northeast corner of the Dominican Republic. Cabin crew, cooks, sailors, secretaries, everyone rushes to the front of the ship to see the show. Moving further into the bay, the captain carefully navigates his ship into a zone where whales have recently been sighted. In late December every year, dozens of cetaceans leave the cold waters of Canada and Iceland to spend the winter months in the bay's warm waters. When Christopher Columbus arrived in Samana Bay in January of 1493, he didn't mention seeing any whales, but he did describe the lush shores covered with coconut groves as the most beautiful place after paradise. However, he was greeted with arrows fired by the Siguayo Indians, so he decided not to come ashore. The Levant drops anchor, but until custom officials and police come aboard to check papers, no one's allowed to disembark. This is routine procedure. While the passengers have breakfast, Audrey gets back to work in the cabins.
Every morning when we're working, someone always comes by and says, "Hello, how are you?" It puts us in a good mood. No one ever says hello like that on land, in the street. It's a family atmosphere, you're never alone. The dolphins and the whales were wonderful. Everyone came out to see them. It was my first time, so it was a powerful moment. It put the crew in a good mood for the rest of the day.
In good spirits, the authorities finally arrive. Cruise ships are rare in this region, so curiosity has undoubtedly augmented the size of this official delegation. Founded in the 18th century by families from the Canary Islands, Santa Barbara de Samana is an unassuming village in the heart of an agricultural province. The town's highlight is its marketplace, where bananas, chili peppers, and yams line the ground. In keeping with African tradition, people come here to make jokes and bargain. The market is a microcosm of life. When the conquistadors arrived, 8 million Arawak Indians lived in Quisqueya, the Indian name for the island. An outdated obelisk entitled "Homage to Our Aboriginal Population," with its chipped and weather-worn paintings, serves as a naive reminder that in less than a century of colonization, the majority of Arawak and Taino Indians were massacred or died of diseases introduced to the island by the Spanish. Leaving Santa Barbara de Samana, we head for the National Park of Los Haitises, which stretches 60 kilometers along San Lorenzo Bay. After passing strange karstic formations rising from the sea, we approach a zone where sea and land merge. This is the mangrove. Slowly we enter a forest of mangroves with amazing tangled aerial roots. In the heart of this humid, virgin forest, the last of the Taino Indians sought refuge as they fled the conquistadors. Here, on the walls of these marine grottos, amidst the shadows, the Taino artists recreated a lost world. A world where man lived in harmony with nature, surrounded by animals. Only the initiatory rites of the shamans held the secrets of this world. The National Guards who currently live on the site watch over the vestiges of Indian culture and the animals who make their home on the bay's numerous small islands. As the sun sets, the Levant leaves Samana Bay. Passengers and crew members prepare to party. Heading due west, the Levant steers towards the Bahamas. The captain and the Bahaman pilot look for a point of anchor that is convenient for the passengers and safe for the ship.
Certain meteorological conditions affect the depth of the water, like yesterday in Samana, or here where everything is sand, so even slight changes in the currents create ravines. The levels go up and down, so the maps are never 100% accurate. It's a question of experience. When you've navigated through here a few times, you get a feeling for whether the water is deep enough or not.
On va mouiller un tout petit peu plus à gauche que l'autre fois, un tout petit peu sur bâbord, donc pour être sûr que les fonds correspondent à ce qu'on a.
the ship is safely anchored, so disembarkation can begin.
Vous pouvez prendre les tenders qui reviendront à bord à 2h30 ou à 3h, de façon à ce que l'excursion parte à 3h30.
Gliding along the surface of an extremely limpid turquoise sea, we berth in Great Inagua. In Spanish, Inagua means surrounded by water, an appropriate name for this southernmost Bahamian island. From the lighthouse tower, the island looks like a huge flat disk floating on the surface of the ocean. Unlike New Providence in Nassau, capital of the Bahamas, or Eleuthera, Great Inagua doesn't depend on tourism, duty-free shops, or offshore banking. It's a peaceful island, and its inhabitants present it with pride and a sense of humor.
Great Inagua, man. It's only three great. Great God, Great Britain, and Great Inagua.
Although the Bahamas gained independence in 1973, there are still traces of British culture. For example, children wear school uniforms.
Look at your pictures and try to identify each picture.
At the school here, we have 247 students altogether, and that's from grades 1 through 12. On the island itself, it's just about 1,000 persons. From here, they will go on to the city in Nassau or one of the colleges in the U.S.
With Cuba in the hands of revolutionaries, American tourists turned their attention to the Bahamas. The tourist industry grew at a startling speed, as did the illegal drug trade. The thousands of tiny islands in the area are an ally to the drug smugglers. The American Coast Guard's mission is to combat the drug smugglers and stand guard against Cuban immigrants.
My name is Lieutenant Junior Grade James Knapp. I'm with the United States Coast Guard, and I'm here at Great Inagua at the request of the Bahamian government to assist them to find illegal drug traffickers. Recently, within the last week, we had found about 1,000 pounds of cocaine in Crooked Ackland Islands. On occasion, we also see migrants coming in from several different Caribbean nations that are either making their way into the Bahamas or making their way into the United States. We have to pay special attention to our navigation because we still respect the territorial seas and the territorial airspace of Cuba, and we're not allowed to fly into Cuban waters or airspace, so we do have to maintain that separation. Let me congratulate you on an almost successful test flight. Thanks. Thanks. So it didn't work out as well as expected.
Several rare pink flamingos fly over Lake Windsor. In spring, which is their mating season, the flamingos will congregate here in the tens of thousands. This living painting, this masterpiece of abstract art, this clash of white and gray, is the world's largest open-air salt flat. Representing 1% of the gross national product, salt production is way behind the 40% generated by the tourist trade. But salt production has the honor of being one of the Bahamas' rare local industries.
We ship salt all parts of the world, all parts of the world.
Before it arrives on the frozen roads of Canada or on the tables of Parisian restaurants, Great Inagua's salt piles up near the sea, creating the highest peaks in the Bahamas.
The dishes I create are made with ingredients from the islands, like sweet potatoes and yams. I meet local women who share their recipes and give me tips. We invent new dishes by adding a French touch to regional specialities, usually quite successfully.
After a night's sailing, the Levant approaches the Cuban coast at dawn. Once again, thanks to the Levant's 3.5-meter draft, the ship is able to drop anchor close to shore. We're in the northeastern part of the country. This region around Barthelemy Bay remains untouched by Cuba's growing tourist industry, recently reactivated by Havana in order to boost the country's ailing economy. The musicians who greet us undoubtedly hope to earn several pesos, which is understandable, considering the average monthly salary in Cuba is about $2. But they play mostly for the joy of it. It's said that Cuba is the land of music, and it's true. From the smallest village to Santiago and Havana, music fills the air we breathe. Barthelymy's activities center entirely around agriculture and fishing, with an insolent variation, oyster farming, which was brought here in the 1950s by Chinese comrades.
I'm in charge of the oyster farming here. The workers start early, at 6 in the morning. Now they're coming back with the boat, which is filled with today's harvest. They have to come back now, because after a certain time the current is too strong and they can't work the oyster beds correctly.
Most of these agricultural workers were farmers who could no longer support their families. They no longer resemble the guajiros, Cuban peasants riding proudly through the village. Fond of his land, the guajiro lives with his family in a little thatched house with chickens and pigs running loose outside. It's a simple but fiercely independent life.
The village is called Bracito. We are farm workers. The people here are humble. We're all in the same family. That's what we say around here. We live like Cuban farmers in the fields. We spend the whole day in the fields, and we watch television in the evening. That's about it. The children go to school. They have a normal life.
It's impossible to look at the islands of the Antilles without seeing traces of Christopher Columbus. We're following Aliani, Jorge, and Adriana 3 young school children to a strange monument surrounded by coconut trees.
What did they teach you in school about Christopher Columbus?
Él no sabía que él se iba a topar con esa tierra y entonces él salió en busca de las Indias.
Él vino en la Santa María. La Santa María traía 40 tripulantes. En total eran, en las 3 que eran la niña, la Pinta de Santa María eran 90 tripulantes en total. Que él desembarcó el 28 de octubre de 1492 y llegó a Punta Gato. Llegó porque vio 2 casitas de aborígenes. Entonces él andaba en busca de la India. Como no la encontró, la encontró, pero a esos aborígenes les llamó indios.
This monument was built 500 years after Christopher Columbus landed here, and I presume that is why this land is so sought after. The monument has a triangular shape, which represents the European part. It symbolizes the penetration of European culture with its neoclassical style into America. The Aboriginal part is an exact replica of objects made by Aboriginal people that were found here. Statues of their gods, amulets, and animal figurines. You'll notice that the Aboriginal part is shaped like a half circle. This is because the Aboriginal houses were shaped this way. Dances and religious ceremonies took place in the center of the village. Here the people married. They worshipped the god Batos. It was the center of life for the Aboriginal people.
After 5 centuries of tumultuous history, like ocean waves, the dreams of the Cuban people came crashing up against the hard laws of the modern world. Never mind revolutionary nostalgia and the name of Che Guevara in the song. What the passengers like is the emotion in the voice. Rounding the eastern tip of Cuba, the Levant leaves the Atlantic Ocean and enters the Caribbean Sea.
I'm a student in the Merchant Marine in Marseille. I'm doing a year-long work experience to get an idea of what my working life will be like later. You've got to be on the ball, keep an eye on everything that's happening on board when you're on bridge watch duty. Make sure the instruments are working, keep the alarms from going off. It's quite strict on that level. I thought the officers would keep to themselves, not mix with the passengers. But there's a lot of camaraderie among crew members, much more than I imagined there would be.
The Levant now crosses the stretch of sea leading to Santiago de Cuba. A Cuban pilot came on board at dawn. With the pilot by his side, the captain carefully supervises the ship's maneuvers. The two men communicate in English, but misunderstandings are always possible.
Everyone counts on the pilot, that's for sure, because he's the one who knows the area. This is especially true when you come to a place for the first time, but the captain controls everything. When the pilot gives a helm order, like this, the captain listens and repeats the order. He relays the message from the pilot to the helmsman. The captain is always responsible for the ship, even when the pilot is present.
With a population of 400,000, Santiago de Cuba is the second largest city of the island. Located at its most eastern part, more than 1,000 kilometers from Havana, the capital, Santiago maintains a difference made of African roots and, more surprisingly, French origins.
Santiago is the reason for our trip, because my family has lots of history here. My mother was born here. My grandfather had a plantation and was involved in the insurrection during the War of Independence. I've never been to Cuba before, so it's interesting for me to discover this country that my grandmother always talked about.
French, Africans, Indians, and Spanish. This ethnic mosaic gave birth to a rich cultural diversity. Santiago is the birthplace of Cuban music. Founded in 1515 by the Spanish conquistador Diego Velázquez, Santiago de Cuba is the oldest town in the Americas. Santiago prospered as the first capital of the Spanish Empire in the New World. Some examples of this golden age include the cathedral, erected in 1522 and rebuilt 5 times, and the magnificent Casa Velázquez, erected in 1516 by Hernán Cortés. With its Moorish balconies, it's said to be the oldest residence in Latin America. Left behind by Spanish masters in favor of Havana, Santiago spent several centuries in anonymity. But in 1791, 27,000 French settlers arrived in Santiago, seeking refuge after the slave rebellion in Haiti. Elegant dances brought over by the French became all the rage. The quadrille was the most popular. The first authentically Cuban music was born when these French dances were infused with African rhythms. The house where the poet and patriot José María Heredia was born dates from this period. Heredia fought for the independence of his country. Rebellious yesterday, welcoming today, heroic tomorrow. Santiago's motto leaves no doubt as to the town's participation in the various struggles marking Cuba's history. Santiago honors its heroes, Carlos Manuel Céspedes, father of the homeland, and Fidel Castro.
Nosotros estamos en el antiguo cuartel Moncada. We are standing in front of the Moncava military barracks. The fort was attacked on July 26, 1953 by Fidel Castro and a group of young revolutionaries seeking to start the armed struggle against Batista and the reigning regime. After the attack, Batista ordered all the holes made by the bullets to be sealed off. When the museum was opened in 1967, the holes were opened up again so that the present and future generations and all the people who visit the museum could see exactly where the attack took place.
The Fort Moncada attack is unsuccessful. Castro's arrested, but amidst the unrest, Batista frees him. The epic of Barbudos, Che Guevara, and the revolution can begin.
Here we see Fidel as he prepares for the Moncava attack with a group of young men who belong to the Generación del Centenario. It was in that year, 1953, that Cuba celebrated the 100-year anniversary of the birth of José Martí, our national hero.
In the sultry air of early evening, light years away from the dogmas of the revolution, Santiago's neighborhoods come to life like so many little villages in the middle of the city. Time stands still, and leisure takes over. Cha-cha-cha, the bolero, salsa. When Cuban music went universal, it was distorted and sterilized. But in the sumptuous surroundings of an ancient colonial mansion, the Cocoye dancers bring tradition back to life. The rumba is a sensual dance expressing through its African roots a man's desire for a woman.
Santiago is unique in this country, beyond the fact that we are the only ones who know how to dance the rumba. You must remember that our culture is a fusion of influences from Spain and Africa. It is those influences which gave me the idea of creating a movement of music and dance that corresponds to our culture and customs. Along with Spain and Africa, there is also a fundamental French influence, and it is this that allowed us to create our own musical style.
Our cruise has ended in Santiago. As the Levant heads back towards the Lesser Antilles, we continue our voyage to Havana. In Havana, the gigantic Plaza of the Revolution is filled with the ghosts of Che Guevara, Jose Marti, and the Cuban Revolution, the anniversary of which is still celebrated here every year. Near the city center, some signs still lambaste the abominable Yankee enemy, but anti-American fervor has died down considerably. Abandoned by the Russians, who no longer supply petrol, strangled by the American embargo, Havana residents sink deeper into economic crisis. To combat the problem, the country has opened its doors to tourism. Amidst the kaleidoscope of cliches boasting Havana's attractions, like music and cigars, it's amusing to find old American cars.
This is a 1955 Chevrolet. I'd love to drive a modern car, but we want to offer a service to tourists who like old cars. I've been driving for the company for 25 years, and that's why they chose me to drive the old American cars.
Nearly 100,000 old American cars drive through the streets of Havana. Chevrolet Bel Airs, Buicks, and Ford Thunderbirds make up an impressive collection of American cars from the 40s and 50s. These cars are carefully looked after and repaired in inventive ways in order to push their lifespan to the maximum. Cubans love their American cars, which often hide less romantic Japanese engines under their hoods. Taxis await their passengers, but competition is fierce now that bicycle taxis have hit the scene. Havana possesses a unique architectural heritage in the Antilles. Since the country opened its doors to tourism in 1991, there's been an attempt to make up for 30 years of neglect and abandonment. Beautiful colonial residences from the 17th and 18th centuries are just waiting to be revived. But whether it's just official propaganda or economic reality, the snail's pace of the work is blamed on the embargo.
Well, it's a shame, but they're in this condition because of the imperialist embargo and the lack of materials to repair them. The embargo has blocked us now for a number of years.
School children stroll along the shady lanes of Prado, which are lined with elegant homes. This is the place to come to if you want to change your home.
People come here when they want to exchange their houses. I come from Mentazas and I want to go to Havana, so I came here personally and I've written down my offer on a piece of cardboard.
In spite of scars caused by time and human ingratitude, the Malecon still offers its long row of pastel-colored column houses to the sea winds. This neighborhood is a moving tribute to the 1950s, when Havana, intoxicated with money and drugs, was the decadent capital of a world living on the edge.
Of course, I knew the Malecon when I was a little girl. There have always been problems because of the sea and the salty air. It's been very difficult to get the interior renovated. So for all of these reasons, it remains in its current state. We've never been able to get the necessary work done on the Malecon. But today, Eusebio Leal's project, to classify the area as a patrimony of humanity, will allow it to be renovated like old Havana was.
The end of the Malecon, heavily guarded, opens onto Havana Bay. The first conquistadors chose this naturally protected site as their base.
Because of its location, Cuba has occupied a very important place in Spanish history, ever since Christopher Columbus discovered it in 1492, and Diego Velázquez began colonizing it in 1510. Cuba is known as the key to the New Gulf, and Havana is known as the capital of the New World.
Like its cathedral, Old Havana has been carefully restored, making it one of the most authentic town centers in the New World. It's also a vibrant musical mecca, teeming with invariably excellent Cuban bands. The famous Bodeguita del Medio is just several meters from the Plaza de Armas. This old grocery store, opened in 1942, rapidly became a meeting place for artists. Hemingway would come to listen to music and drink mojitos, a cocktail of white rum, lemon, and mint leaves. The composer of this song, honoring Che Guevara, was also a regular at the Bodeguita del Medio. The song is covered by every band in Cuba and has become a veritable national hymn. But what story does this song tell?
La historia de la canción Hasta Siempre Comandante es la historia viva.
The song Hasta Siempre Comandante tells the true story of the Che's relation with the people of Cuba. When the Che died, Carlos Pueblo, the author, said he wanted to pay tribute to the Che passing away, and how sad the Cuban people were left. So he wrote this song to say that even dead, he was still present in their memory. When they said their goodbyes, the Che would say Hasta Siempre, Comandante, until forever. And Fidel would answer, "Hasta luego, comandante," until later. So Carlos Pueblo called his song "Hasta siempre, comandante," in memory of the Che and the Cuban people.
The walls are covered with thousands of autographs and photos of illustrious visitors. Though there are more tourists than artists coming here today, Bodeguita del Medio retains a highly authentic atmosphere. It's impossible to mention Havana without thinking of its famous cigars.
Tobacco is important to Cubans, not only for political and historical reasons, but also economically. Production is high, and the tobacco industry represents a model in the Cuban economy. A Cuban who doesn't smoke is only half Cuban. In fact, all the Cubans smoke, even though smoking is unhealthy. It's a part of life here.
Our tour of Havana ends with its most famous cabaret. Founded in 1931, the Tropicana is the only establishment that has stayed open since the revolution. The Tropicana show is kitsch, but high quality. It reunites all of Cuba's paradoxes and fantasies. It's a world of glitter and glamour in a country eroded by recession. A link to the wild pre-revolutionary years. Is the Tropicana simply a nostalgic look at days gone by? Or is it a glimpse into Cuba's future?